Hi, and welcome to On the Same Page. I'm Tommy Sanders. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for catching up with us again here at That Bookstore in Blytheville, Arkansas. It is a great place to catch up with some of America's best authors, and we have caught up with one of them today. He's George Singleton. He has written books called The Half Mammals of Dixie. These People Are Us. This is his latest work. This is called Why Dogs Chase Cars. 15 stories that take place in the fictional town of 45, South Carolina, as seen through the eyes of Mendel Dawes, the narrative voice. And like most of us who grew up in small towns, he has to deal with a lot of helplessness and hopelessness and a whole lot of craziness. So we will speak to the author in just a moment here, and then later we'll talk to a panel of readers who have read Why Dogs Chase Cars. Stay with us. We're ready to go and ready to meet the pride of Dacusville, South Carolina, the author of Why Dogs Chase Cars, George Singleton. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks,
on
Tommy.
The same page.
Thank you a lot.
First, let's get this out of the way because they tricked me when they sent me the sort of advanced copy of this book. I thought it was a novel, and my expectations were kind of rejiggered when I read it. Yeah.
Doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you get to the end. No, there are 15 stories, all told from the point of view of one fellow named Mendall Dawes. Mendel showed up in the last book called Half Mammals of Dixie. He was in the very first story, and I kind of liked the guy, so I told 15 stories, some of them when he's at 40, but most of them were kind of rites of passage stories when he's younger and in love with a woman named Shirley Ebo.
Yeah, and he's the narrative voice. He's the voice. Through his eyes, we see this fictional, I guess, town of 45, South Carolina.
Yeah, it's fictional.
More or less fictional.
Yeah, well, that's what we'll say. I'm going to live by that.
How much of the book? We'll get this one out of the way. How much of the book and how much of Mendel Dawes is autobiographical?
Let me see. My father was kind of nuts, and you know, Lee Dawes was nuts. My father used to embarrass me a ton, which I think is great now. There's no town called 45. I was brought up in a town called Greenwood, South Carolina. There was a town nearby called 96.
And that's a real town.
There's a town called 6 Mile, which is kind of nearby. As far as fiction, it's about 99% fiction, I say.
99.
Maybe.
That's what you're saying right now.
Yeah,
that's what we're sticking with here. Although the characters probably have some basis in real people. They're people that anyone who grew up in a small town, I'm thinking, would recognize.
I think so. Growing up in Greenwood, which is a town about the same size as what I call Blytheville, but I think a lot of other people are calling Blytheville. But that's just another problem that I've tried to figure out.
Blytheville's what I've always heard.
Blytheville, 18,000.
Something like that.
Small. It's in the middle. My hometown was in the middle of nowhere. It's 60 miles from Augusta, Georgia, 60 miles from Columbia, South Carolina, 60 miles from Greenville, South Carolina, and nothing in between. It was a cotton mill town. These kids are in my book are products of cotton mills. So, but it's made up.
Yeah,
kind of.
It's a town in the South, so I guess it falls under the general umbrella category of Southern fiction. Yet
I think so.
It seems a lot different from a lot of Southern fiction I read. I read somewhere a quote from you that you don't see the word grits in my books.
Yeah, there's somebody talks about Southern fiction, they're thinking Faulkner, Welty, O'Connor. That's it. Out of all of those, maybe Flannery O'Connor because it's kind of fun. I think Flannery O'Connor's hilarious. Mm-hmm. I'm not that funny, but it's closer to that, and it's a little bit of a New South. Where I live near Greenville, South Carolina, it's a really nice town. There are heads banging. There's the old Southern kind of traditional thing, and there's a bunch of foreigners that are living there. So there's new stuff, good restaurants. Good bars.
Good bars.
Yeah, what the heck.
There's a lot of comparisons I can make, I guess, to Flannery O'Connor as far as the characters go, as in some severely warped people in this book. I mean, almost one and all in this book.
Kind of misfits, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, I think it's fun to write about, and everyone has flaws, and I have a million. My characters have 2 million, though, so, and I have fun. When I'm writing, I just kind of want to have fun. What a better job than to have fun doing what you love, so.
Yeah. There are 15 standalone pieces, the chapters in the book, although I've read novels where the thread from chapter to chapter wasn't as strong as it seemed to be in this. I mean, really, it's you're certainly you're ready for the next one when you get through.
I think, you know, and I worked hard at how to. I mean, when I sat down and started writing, I said, okay, I got all these stories in my head, and I tried to work hard on threading together so you could go, oh yeah, you know, I couldn't introduce a character in the second story who doesn't show up again until the 15th story. So I tried.
Yeah.
I hope it worked.
Yeah.
Who knows?
A lot of sort of sad, funny facts about life in small towns. You know, people who have to lose digits at the mill in order to get a little extra money because they get $1,000 a finger and stuff like that.
That's you know, that's true. That's all.
That's
true.
for real.
That is true. I mean, it's not in my life, but in the mills, from what I understand, and as a matter of fact, Ron Rash, who was here last week, he told me this too, and he said, you know, people they get $1,000 for a digit, and something like $5,000 for part of an arm, and I went, golly, would there be people who would try to do that? And which I imagine they would. I know I would. No, I wouldn't, but what the heck?
Would you? But that's where the fantasy. But the fact that they get this money is for real. And that was the starting point.
True story. Yeah.
For those people in the book, and that one character especially, who was sort of creating his moving fund from from the digits
to go to Murrell's Inlet, South Carolina.
Yes,
you know,
yes, and be a maitre d'. That's it's kind of out there. This book. A lot of people. You say it's not funny. I think it's a very funny book. And a lot of people write comedy by using a straight line and working the comic line against it.
Yeah.
And I don't see so much of that. You do it the hard way. I mean, you kind of make the comic line its own sort of living and breathing thing.
Well,
is that hard, or is that just the way you do it?
I guess the way I do it, but there's a old Irish playwright named Samuel Beckett who said there's nothing funnier than human misery. Mean line. I mean, that sounds so mean, but it goes all the way back to Aristotle and all that stuff with catharsis, Oedipus stabs Isaiah. Boy, glad I didn't do that. And that's kind of what, nothing funnier than human misery. So I'm going, God, so I'm got these people who are kind of everyday people doing the best they can with what they got, but things befall them, and I hope that the reader goes, God, at least that didn't happen to me. At least I'm not sticking my hand in a spinning frame trying to lose fingers so I can move to Murrell's Inlet,
Our readers who read this book that we'll talk with later on in the show asked me a couple of things to pass on to you, and one of them said that she knew that now you also teach writing. Is that correct?
I do.
You teach
I do.
some writing.
I teach high school kids.
Teach high school kids writing. Did that, she wanted to know, make you a better writer? Does that make you a better writer?
Yeah. My student, I have a hard time, I have to have a job. But a lot of times my students will say, where do I go from here? And they'll have one page. And I can say, well, here's a chance, here's where to go, here's where to go, here's where to go. I, lose all my, I don't have any ideas at the end of the day. Now I'll say to my students, when you're on page 15, show it to me. It's kind of, you wouldn't say, I'm going to bake a cake and just say, how are these eggs? Are the eggs okay? Say, bake the cake. Let me see the whole cake first. But I get so many ideas from just talking to these kids and having a good time.
All the craziness of the novel and everything like that. The jumping around, the time traveling in the mind of the narrator and so forth like that. For all those things, there does seem to me to be a lot of discipline, and that's what this reader told me too. She's a retired English and writing teacher, and she says there's a lot of discipline at work there. She says it's very, the structure and the devices are very strictly adhered to, and she gave as an example the character of Mendel Dawes, strong from the very first page.
Oh, nice.
Never reticent, never anything like that. She really praised you.
Oh,
for
good.
That. Was that a conscious thing, or is this guy so strong in your vision that it's hard to keep him?
No, and the thing, I think if you just sit down. Everybody gives me a hard time to think, oh, you're just old crazy guy in South Carolina. I get up at 4 a.m. I write every morning, 4 to 8 a.m. You wouldn't think, to know me, you'd say, boy, what a weirdo, just out of control. But I'm real disciplined about that. And I think by being disciplined about just getting up and writing every morning and doing all that, you get to know the characters better. And hopefully that works.
Wonderful descriptive capacity on your part. I got to praise you for that.
Oh, thanks.
Great work in that. Do you have like a journal?
No.
that you keep? Do you have a notebook,
I do handwrite.
tape recorder?
No, I handwrite everything. Well, I may quit that because I just finished a novel. The novel's 370 pages. It's called Novel. I handwrote the whole daggum thing, 4 big notebooks, and then had to retype it. And that's good for me because you rewrite, and I really need to rewrite. I'm kind of just flying and all that. But I don't know that I'm ever going to handwrite again. I don't keep a journal because I'm just writing, most of the other time, and I don't want anybody to ever see that stuff. I don't want to die and have someone go, here's George's journal, blah, blah, blah. That's secret. Keep that stuff secret.
Did you, at what point in your life did you know that you were going to be a writer, that you were going to write all the time?
That's a good question. I was about 21. I went to study in France. I was going to Furman University. At the time, it was a Baptist school, and I had to get away from there because everybody's trying to save me in the laundry room. Then I went to France. I studied under a playwright named Michel Sénéger. I was writing these bad plays. And then I came back to the United States, and I wrote bad novel, like 1,000 pages of bad novels, 3 of them. Went to graduate school. One of the bad novels is my thesis, at UNC Greensboro. And then I started writing short stories. I didn't write a short story until I was 28, and I didn't start writing in first person until I was 28 either, and it all just kind of clicked. But it was a lot of years to get to that point.
Sort of late, I guess.
I think kind of late.
By some people's standards, right?
I think kind of late because and I'm so stupid and hard. Man, most people, Tommy, if you like ask out a woman for a date and she goes no, for like 8 or 10 years, you normally say, I'm going to quit asking her out. So I'm writing, reject, and keep writing. Most sane people just say, I quit. Let me go get a job as a CPA or do something else. And I kept going. As I tell my students, it's like running. If you go run every day, you're going to be better and better. And you're going to have a little bit of bad days, but you're not going to get worse.
And now you're unstoppable. I mean, you don't see quitting.
No. I'm a writing fool now. I have a new novel coming out in June, and then June 2006, I have another book of short stories out, and we'll see what happens.
I got to ask you, why do dogs chase cars?
In South Carolina, they're trying to hitchhike out of the state. They're just trying to get out of South Carolina. I can say that here in Arkansas, right? Back home, I'll get shot,
Yeah. You get a lot of agreement here, too, from the home folks, too. There's a section in there I'd like for you to read, and we pointed it out earlier. If you wouldn't mind.
I'd love to.
It starts out the story called Segregation, I think.
Yes. Yeah. You ready?
Yeah.
The summer of monkeys and anacondas came at the end of the fall, winter, then spring of monkeys and anacondas. A rumor started that the last county fair and freak show's traveling zoo had somehow become unlocked and that a dozen spider monkeys took out of there. Of course, every 45 child and half their parents couldn't think of anything better than to trap a spider monkey and bring it home as a family pet. Over the Dixie Drive-In, I heard Glenn Flack's father tell somebody there wasn't a better coon dog than a spider monkey. At some point during all this, a rational person in our midst realized that 45 children might actually catch a monkey and contract rabies. What would keep kids from wandering around our near-flat countryside in search of the kind of mammals that look so cute on that Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom show? Anacondas. So word went out that the freak snake lady's 2 big anacondas, and we'd seen her close up wearing a 2-piece bathing suit with 40 feet of snakes around her body, had escaped too. What did snakes eat? Monkeys and children, nothing else.
All right. That's the way life is in 45 South Carolina.
Kinda.
The author of the book, Why Dogs Chase Cars, George Singleton, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you coming by. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk with some readers who have read Why Dogs Chase Cars. We'll see what they thought about it. Stay with us. All right, we have regathered, and we're here at Wordsworth Books in Little Rock, Arkansas, and ready to talk with our readers about the book, Why Dogs Chase Cars. I'd like to welcome our guest today. Sherry Bischoff is a retired English teacher living here in Little Rock. Thomas Butler is an executive assistant with the Martin Luther King Commission, also lives here in Little Rock. And thank you all for reading the book and coming to share with us today. Well, we'll start with you, Sherry. What is this book about? And before we even get into that, Is it a novel? Is it a collection of short stories? What was your opinion as you were reading it?
Okay.
It's kind of a little of each,
It
right?
is a little of each, but I read the overleaf, which was good because it's
a good plan when you start a book. Don't neglect to do that. Yeah.
And there are 14 stories, but there's a continuing thread all the way through them, and so but you have closure after each one. You can stop and rest and regroup and then pick it up again and go when you're ready.
Thomas, what was your impression of it? Does it read more like a novel or a short story collection to you?
Well, I was not quite fair to the author when I started. I did not read the Flyleaf.
I didn't either.
I opened it and I started to read it because I thought I was reading a novel that would just go right straight through and I could follow one continual storyline. And after about the first half of the first chapter, I'm wondering what's going on, and then I kept reading, and it switched around just a little. And all this time, I did not read the Flyleaf. I did not open to see it was a short story. So, but it was interesting enough to keep you continuing to read because it evoked this curiosity. Mm-hmm. And basically, I wanted to know why dogs chase these cars, and continued to read. And he came up with some interesting little things. And when I got to the very first place where he explained that, well, to keep from going into what he actually said, basically, in this little town that he was in, that was the only way they could commit suicide, by chasing
cars. So, I like. There's a few explanations offered through there, yes. But that's that's probably the most plausible one. When we open a book, we always have that hope, that expectation that it's going to take us to a place that is the reason we pick up the book in the first place, to sort of escape what's going on and have that reading time. This book takes us to a place at Hamburg, Arkansas, from Stevens, Arkansas, from Magnolia, Arkansas, that we can recognize a lot of the things about this place, being from a small town in the South, right? Yes. Yeah. What to you rang the truest, Sherry?
I think that I got way out of my comfort zone with this book. There were not many females in here.
Right.
And so I kept plugging along because it was obviously from a male point of view. And many times I was lost because I did not understand what they were talking about. It's kind of like the dog on the football field and everybody thinks it's funny and I can't figure out why it's funny. It's a man thing.
Yeah.
And so
it is a male world he deals with
for the most part. It really is. Yeah. But the part that I truly liked best was how he wrote the book. It was a veritable feast of senses.
The descriptive aspect of it is what you like.
Yes, yeah, okay. I mean, he took care of every sense, the sight, hearing, taste, everything. And by the time I would get through, now you notice again, I tell you, I stopped after each vignette, each little story, because I was exhausted. He puts that much excitement, and even though I did not feel close to the characters, I wanted to find out what was happening. But his writing itself is wonderful.
He's got a lot in him, doesn't he?
Oh,
he's got a lot to get out. He's got a lot of skill at these descriptive things. Did you ever wonder or want him to do a little editing, to strip this thing down just a little bit so we can stay with the story a little bit better, Thomas?
There is one story, I don't remember the name of it, but you'll remember, where Shirley Ebo takes him to the black cemetery.
Yes.
Shirley Ebo is a young friend, the young girlfriend, actually becomes his girlfriend.
Right, and she takes him to this black cemetery to show him something. I won't go into the details so that the audience will wonder. But on the way to the cemetery, he gets into this surrealistic area, this almost ethereal area where they come to a stream, and then he stops and looks around or something. Well, when he looks back, Shirley is on the other side of the stream, and her feet are not wet. And he says, he makes it plain that it's too far to jump it, but she says, well, jump, you know. And he wants to go downstream to find a way across because he doesn't want to wade across. And then he looks around again, and he's on the other side of the stream, and his feet aren't wet either. I never got an explanation for that.
I know, you want that too, because he sets it up. It's a very, obviously there's some sort of mystic, spiritual aspect.
Yes.
You know, they're going to a graveyard, to a burial place, and then all these sort of hallucinogenic things start happening in there, and you do want to see if there's any, but that's what's the things about the book that kind of makes you a little bit frustrated.
Yeah. And the characters, there's another thing. I've traveled a whole lot, and a lot of these people a lot of the characters that he uses, I have met different places and all this. And he puts all these people in this little small town in South Carolina, and I wonder throughout this thing if he invents the character in order to make the point, or if the character is really there that he takes the point from. But
I would go even one beyond that. I think sometimes he has a little phrase, a little punchline, maybe an old saying, and he writes a story backward from that in order to get there. And I'm sure that's what you're getting at too.
Yeah.
Did you get that,
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
And it's worth it, you know. Most times, that's the thing about it. You can't
Yes,
fault
it
him
is.
for it. If I did it, everybody would be knocking me just a little bit. Is it comedy? Is it all comedy? What do you think?
there were a couple of times when I thought different places were hilarious. I mean, I found myself laughing out loud a couple of times. But on the whole, I would not say it was a comedic book. The book is more philosophical, I think, than comedy. He uses the humor to get his points across. And I think it's good. I think there's going to be a limited audience that it actually appeals to because of it and because of the title. I mean, you know, personally, I would not pick up Why Dogs Chase Cars.
Some people would.
Yeah, but a lot of people would.
Right.
And I think if he gets the proper amount of press, that it will be a fantastic seller.
It's always the case, isn't it? It seems to be.
I don't want to tell the whole book.
Don't tell the book, because it really is. There's so much to be gotten from it. Well, let's skip on ahead. And is there anything that you all find is missing? I mean, of course, you know, it's not a linear novel. We're going to miss a thread that goes all the way through. But is there anything else that you wanted to know more about? We'll start with you, Shirley.
I really needed closure about his mother.
There you go.
Okay, all right. We won't get too much into that, but the mother's
Right.
the mother's whereabouts are not known through the
Exactly,
book.
exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, my thought on it was that the book went from ridiculous to absurd. I just couldn't quite get a handle on it. It was funny part of the time, like you said, and I would do a laugh out loud, but then I had to think about it too.
Yeah.
You know, it was what did that mean?
Yeah.
And I'd keep reading, and then I'd go back up to what was that?
Yeah.
You know, it was.
It takes a little longer than
It's
the average book to
It
read
really
for that
does.
reason.
Yeah, you have to think. It's
Yeah.
a thought-provoking
Absolutely.
type thing.
It's not what you call a page turner.
No.
You go back and you
No.
re-examine passages and so
Right.
forth like that.
Right.
Things that,
Right.
the major characters, Mendel, of course, who is the narrative voice, strong voice, as you pointed out before we started this taping here. Mendel's dad.
Yeah.
And Shirley Ebo, the girlfriend, probably the three main characters. He also has a succession of school chums, which seem to be sort of the same person.
Right.
They're all just kind of pranksters like him. Let's talk about the dad. The being a son of a weirdo is a theme we've seen in other books. How well do you think it was handled here, Tom?
I think it was handled well. Now, you pick up the closeness between them, but you also pick up that he thinks his dad's kind of sort of crazy some of the time too. And another guy that you didn't mention that I think plays a pretty good part is the storekeeper.
Oh, right. The goat wagon storekeeper.
Yes.
Before we wrap it up here, When I ask you first, Thomas, would you recommend this book to another reader here in Arkansas?
Yes, I would. I would. I really do think that there is a lot of wisdom that's dispensed along the lines of a Mark Twain.
Right.
Not given directly, but it's hidden in there that you figure out for yourself.
Excellent. Sherry Bischoff, what would you do? Would you recommend it?
I would, because most of my friends like Southern writers.
Okay.
And he is definitely Southern.
He's all the way that.
Yes,
We'll see a lot of all of our small towns in this book,
Yes,
right?
that's true.
Sherry Bischoff, Thomas Butler, thank you so much for your insights. Thanks for reading the book and joining us here today. The book, Why Dogs Chase Cars. I want to thank our guest, George Singleton, as well. You've been watching On the Same Page, coming to you today from Wordsworth Books here in Little Rock.
For more information about AETN Presents On the Same Page, visit us at aetn.org.